Welcome back to the Differential Show. This episode I'll go over how my team did last week, my top 6 players for each position. You're going to want to check that out for sure. And my plans for game week 7. But before we start, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. So let's take a look at how I did. So 66 points, not the greatest. It's right around the average. There's a lot of big scores this week, but that was kind of dependent on having Son and then essentially all of Newcastle's back line. I'm going to take the Ederson finally had a shutout. I'm paying a luxury on that guy to get me a shutout, but once he gets a shutout, then look at Diaz right below him has a shutout. And I've been telling you about Anderson for weeks. He actually has the second most points for defenders right now. And I had him early, so I'm so happy that I'm not having to transfer him in where others would be. So that's someone you would want to target, though. Crystal Palace defensively is excellent. Huge differential. Not a lot of people have him. And then Trippier, finally, the attacking threat. For the price you're paying for Trippier, you're essentially paying the $2 million more than Botman. Well, it's 1.9 now, I believe. Just because of the attacking threat. So the 3 assists were killer plus the shutout. It's not going to happen every week. So once again, people that do bring in Trippier, you're taking the chance that we're going to have just like everyone that brought in Sterling and then Son. Though the next week was a blank. So just keep that in mind. Don't just try to jump on huge scores because you think it's going to be like that every week. It's realistically not going to be. So Maddison in the middle, excellent. Quality pick, definitely worth the price. He is flagged. He did pick up a knock. He should be fine though. But 9 points, I'll take it. I wish I had Son, but having Maddison is somewhat a decent cover. And Bombos had a little bit of a slump. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Diaby, I was ahead of the curve. This is the guy we're going to all want with the fixtures coming up. He plays, I've talked about him in other episodes. He's in a great position to score. He looks more of a threat than Watkins. Sterling is honestly, he's just on a bad team. It's not even Sterling that's bad. It's just that he's on a bad team that's playing awful, and they can't finish, even though Jackson finished today. But Sterling, I believe he has his like top 3 touches in the box in the whole league right now. So he's doing well. There's nothing happening beyond that. So moving on to the front line, Jesus was a luxury pick. I was trying to be ahead of the curve with that. It just hasn't paid off. He did have 1 return since he's been back. He's just not getting the total minutes, but he had 2 big chances this last game. So someone to think about. It's more of like, I don't need to get rid of him, but I do have 2 free transfers, so someone I would think about possibly moving. Awani finally hit that wall, but City, that's the toughest game all City. The toughest game all season, City away. He's a hold. I love the player. I'm telling you, this is the guy that's going to be the consistent forward that we're finally creators will be on once he keeps on going again, because he's going to keep on scoring. And then Haaland is Haaland. So if you look at my bench, Bowen at 7 points, who was I going to start him over? You could say Sterling, but Sterling had the home game and Bowen was against Liverpool away. But Liverpool always gives up that 1 goal. It just happens to be Bowen. So I'm just happy that I have him and he will find his way in my starting lineup. Okay, this is what I was really excited about. So I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do a before and after. So I'm ranking each position 1 through 6 each week, and then a red or green arrow depending on how I move them. And this is going to be based on value and where I see them. So it's not all about just how many points they have and where they rank from their position, but just where they are and how they're trending. So basically the eye test, me watching the games, also some stats, form is huge for me, and then obviously the fixtures. So if we're looking at our forwards, we obviously have Haaland, and I'm just going to kind of go through what they've done in the first 6 weeks when it comes to returns. So Haaland he's returned 5 out of 6, so excellent, definitely worth the value of 14 million. If we kind of go down, Alvarez, he snuck up on us. We didn't really know if he was going to start, but he's been consistently starting all the games. He has returned 4 out of 6. And Awani, who I've been preaching from my first episode about this guy, he is 5 out of 6, just like Haaland. Now he hasn't scored as many returns as Haaland, but if you think he scored 5 out of 6, why are we not bringing him in, right? Okay, Edouard, 3 out of 6, did blank this week, but still 50%. Nunez, definitely high. Nunez, 3 out of 6, but he only started 2 out of 6 games, so that's pretty good. And then Ferguson's had 2 decent games, with one of them being a hat trick, so he has done 2 out of 6 returns. So if we go into midfield, I value Mbamo pretty high, and that's because of the price. He came in at 6.5. He's up to 6.9, I believe, right now. So he's huge value. Yes, he's had 2 blanks, but he has returned 3 games out of 6. And at that price, I still value him very high, and that's why I had him in first before game week 6. Salah, definitely worth the 12.5. It's hard because you have to sacrifice in different areas, but that's why you might have an Mbamo or like a Matoma. But at 12.5, 12.6 probably moving up tonight. 6 out of 6 returns. I mean, what else can you ask for? He hasn't hauled, meaning 2 returns in a game, but he's been pretty consistent with his form. And then below him, Saka. Yeah, I've heard things like we should be getting rid of Saka, and I know he's had a knock, but besides the knock, it's been like, oh, the fixtures are coming up, it's not looking good. But he has returned 5 out of 6. Hello, 5 out of 6. You paid 8.5 for him. 5 out of 6 is really good. I don't know what else you expect for, 8.5. Madison. I didn't expect this in the beginning of the season. I just didn't know exactly where he was going to play. But playing right behind the striker of Son right now, 4 out of 6 returns, going to take that. So right below him, Son. So he has had 2 major hauls. He's only returned 2 out of 6 games, but 2 out of 3 if you're counting when he's actually been playing striker. And at the bottom, Rashford. Before game week 6, I still rated him high because when they do score, he seems to have something to do with it. But he's only returned 2 out of 6. So kind of disappointing, but he was currently in my top 6. And if you look at my defenders, I am very high on Estupiñán from the beginning. I just think he's on a team that scores, which I've been preaching. You get players that are on teams that score. He has attacking ability. He has 3 out of 6 games he's returned. And he didn't play in game week 5 though, so we got to take that in consideration. Udagi, 3 out of 6 he's done, so still pretty good for the value that he came in at 4.5. Diaz on a team that has the best, in my opinion, the best defense in the league. He's 2 out of 6, but he didn't play in game week 1. So I feel like those shutouts will come as the season goes. Trippier, I had him lower. This is obviously before the 18-point game. Yeah, he's only returned 2 out of 6, but he had really tough games. I mean, it's really, really tough games in the beginning. And we all kind of talked about it. He's turned the corner. The whole team's kind of turned the corner based off of the fixtures were not as great. I mean, those are really tough ones. And I'm not too high on the fixtures, but those were pretty tough. So that's kind of came into consideration with that, where he would be placed. And then Anderson in 5th right there. He's had 3 out of 6 returns. Love him. Great asset. I believe everyone should have him on their team. And then Walker. Surprisingly, he's played every game. And he's kind of older, but he kind of has a new role for the team. 3 out of 6 returns. Definitely would be on him to bring in as the season goes on. So if you look on the other side, and so after game week 6, so now I've watched all the games. Fairly the same on the forwards. I still feel really strong about the top 3. Haaland's probably never going to move. Alvarez, he did blank, but they did have a red card, so I really can't take that into consideration. Like, I want to get rid of him. Awani he's just holding there at 3. Nunez. So this is a guy I will consider. There's just something about him. Maybe he just reminds me of myself when I played. Obviously a lot better than I played. But he has the it factor, and I really can't put my finger on what that is, but he is just exciting to watch, and I think he's now starting. And the game that they just played today, he did not start. It was Gapco down the middle, so I believe he'll get the start going this weekend against Spurs. Edouard did blank. He's on Crystal Palace. He doesn't score a lot, so I didn't want to drop him too far. But I still think he's a good asset because he's cheap and he has returned quite a bit. So Wilson does make my top 6 this time. Just unfortunately, he did not play. He was not in the squad. He was injured for the game that was for today, a non-league game. So I know Eddie Howe did speak on like half his team is injured. Who knows if he's just telling us a bunch of you know what, or if it's true. something to definitely think about. If you're going to bring in a Newcastle player, I would wait for the press conferences later this week. So if we look into the midfield spots, Salah is just consistent. If he wasn't 12.5, even if it was like 11.5, I think everyone would have him. I think it's just hard to get to him, but he's so consistent. He's just kind of playing a different role. He's super creative. I think there's more of a chance of him getting bonus now just because of where he's playing on the field and how he's playing. He's not. I don't think he feels like he has to do everything now. He's got players that can actually do things. Son's moved up because of, my new word is going to be called haul ability. He has the ability to do 2+ returns in a game in the striker position. I would say he's essential. Right now, at his price, he is definitely essential because he has haul ability. He's playing striker. He's on a good team that has good form. And Mbamo goes down 2 slots just based on that Salah and Son have done so well. And it's not a knock on Mbamo. Yes, his fixtures aren't that great going for. I mean, they're about average, honestly. But he's still on penalties. He's still playing the majority of the game. Sometimes they move him out wide later in the game, or he does get subbed off. Not too early, but he does get subbed off. But what else do you want? Like, he's got a great price at a midfield spot. Unless you're maybe looking at Matoma that may or may not start. I guess it doesn't matter because he still scores. But I would just be holding on Mbama for right now. Madison just kind of holds where he's at. I just love the player. I think it was right of me to get him in the wild card. I do wish I had Son, but I have Madison. He kind of holds there. He could possibly be going above Mbama, but right now, just based off the value and his price, Mbama's going to stay where he's at. Saka just went down based on, I had to move Son up, so he kind of just moved down. Nothing against what he did. He does have a slight knock. We'll have to see if he is going to be featured in the game this weekend. We'll have to look at the press conferences on that. But I do like him. He's a hold on my team. Even if he isn't going to play, sorry, not on my team, but teams that have him, I would definitely just hold him. Even if he's not going to play, just probably maybe look to upgrade a bench player or something, because I just think he's too valuable at his price and his ability to haul, and he's been 5 out of 6 returns, so I would go with it. And then Bowen, he had to get in there because his form is great. He just scored against Liverpool. Like, yes, they're not the best defense, but they've only been really giving up like 1 goal a game, so it's not like they're super leaky. It's just Allison's been saving them a lot of times. Bowen's so good. He looks like the biggest threat on the team. I do like Ward-Prowse. But when it comes to the actually scoring part of it during the flow of the game, Bowen looks like elite out there, and I think you'd want to bring him in before it's too late and where all the hauls are gone. I feel like he does have haul ability. Going into the defenders, I have Botman rated as my number 1 defender. Just keep in mind, Eddie Howe did talk about him having a knee injury. I have no idea what that means. Ligament soreness, don't totally know. He could just be messing with us. We don't know until probably the press conferences, like I said about other players. Anderson had to move up. I've just talked about him my entire episode this time. He is a guy, I just think he's great. I think he's solid back there. He's going to get you points in the shutouts because Crystal Palace's defense is it's like top 5. If they just had an offense, they would be a top 6 team. If we're looking at my next player, Trippier, I almost put him at the top, but I think it's just his price is why I would need to see more of what he did. Not saying it needs to be 18 points, but I would need to see the returns coming for the value of 6.5. So right now I'm holding him at 3. And then Walker, just based on I didn't think he would start that much. He moved up to 4. I've actually moved him out of Diaz just based on he's in more of an attacking role. So he did get an assist, and he actually scored for England. So he's kind of in just great form right now. Estupiñán has just gone down based off of these players above him have gone up. I don't think any less of him. I just think there's a little bit of a rotation risk. But when he's in there, he's still a player I'd want to start regardless of who they're playing. And then Udogie, kind of the same feel to it. He had the flashes in the beginning. Just hasn't had the returns, but he's had some tough fixtures. He's still getting in the box. He's still active. He just hasn't had the results from it, but still a player I would want on my team. So taking a look at my team for this week, I got a tough decision because I have 2 transfers to make, and I'm not really sure exactly how I would start players because I have 8 attacking players, and I don't really have any fixtures where I'm not keen on playing that player. You can even look at Madison going against Liverpool, but he's at home. So if I'm not looking at that I have 8 attacking players, my transfers would more than likely be Jesus out for Nunez, because I just love the player. I want him on my team. Not that I don't want Jesus. It's just I see something in Nunez and I want to be on that train before the train leaves. And then Sterling, I just don't like Chelsea, but I like Sterling. I don't like Chelsea. They're just not that great of a team. So from that point, he would be something like a Ward-Prowse, maybe even a Matoma. I don't need to make the 2 transfers. It would be more of a luxury transfer. I would be looking to bring in someone ahead of the curve, as I call it. Like, get them before they're hot. Matoma literally came off the bench and scored 2 goals. So, like, why wouldn't I want to bring him in? But I don't need to. I have to bench one of the 8 players, and that's something I'll be thinking about later in the week. But if I'm looking for just transfers right now, I mean, I would say Nunez. Nunez is almost a for sure. As much as I like Jesus, Nunez is more than likely going to be coming on my team. So my final thoughts for the week, and one of the things I want to talk about is, who do you actually feel is essential? Okay, so we have Haaland. Everyone can agree with me, Haaland is essential. He's got the returns. It's hard to win without him, so to me, he's essential. If we can honestly say with ourselves, who would the second essential player be? Because I only think there's really 2 essential players. To me, it's Son. And that's based on his position change, the team he plays for, and haul ability, which I've talked about before. Haul ability is something that we're always looking for, a player that can get multiple returns. And from that position, with Maddison behind him, it's essentially like it's Kane at 9.1. Okay, possibly going 9.2, right? Why wouldn't you want that at that price, right? If Kane was in the league and he was at that price, wouldn't you take Kane, especially at a midfielder spot? Yeah, to me, that's an essential player. If you're looking at like honorable mentions as essential players, you could say Salah. He's not just based off of price. It's just hard to get him, but I would say he was a 3rd-ranked essential player. And then if fit, to me, it would be Botman because of the value that you get for the 4.5. The last thing I want to talk about is just how you value players. So think about it. So when you bring in a player at the value of, just say 6.5, like what are your expectations of that player? So if that player blanks 2 in a row, well, if your expectation was for that player to at least get 2 returns out of 5, why are we jumping off that player just because they have not returned in 2? Right? So you really got to look at the value of the player based on price and what your expectations are for that player before you start jumping ship. Because usually what happens is you and myself, right, we're all in this, we get rid of that player, and what happens? That player actually returns the next week because we were impatient. Sometimes just let the players play. Ask the question to yourself, is this player good? Is this a quality player? Is this player in somewhat of a form? So you say Mbama. We've seen a lot of people transfer out Mbama. But why? Oh, because he has blanked in 2. What's his price, though? What was your expectation for him? Who are you jumping on? Is that person that you're jumping to that much better? Now, if you're going to like a Maddison, okay, yes, I understand that. But if you're going to someone, just say like, I want to go straight to Matoma, like I talked, yes, that's a good jump, but it's almost essentially the same thing. It's the same sort of value player at the same spot, and you're going to someone that's not barely, but it's not always going to start because of rotation risk. So those are the things you're going to want to think about. Are you going to play safe, or are you going to play super risky? And that's something that you want to think about during this week, because I know a lot of us are thinking wild card, or we have multiple transfers to spend. So before I leave, just make sure you subscribe, hit that subscribe button, give it a like, and I'll see you next week.